The stars were quiet as the night stretched across the solar system. Silence holding space like a great, endless ocean. Humanity had grown used to that silence. They believed they had time to expand, to explore, and to dream, but in a single moment, everything changed. The first warning came from a deep space listening post, orbiting Neptune. A young technician named Keller stared at the strange signals crawling across his screen. At first he thought it was interference, cosmic noise from the farthest reaches of space, but then the signal sharpened into patterns. Weapons lock signatures. Keller froze, his breath shallow.
Ow.
These were not natural, they were not random, they were not human. He reached for the comms button, his voice shaking command. "This is Outpost 9, we have contact, we have unknown ships inbound, repeat, unknown ships inbound." The message barely made it through before the station shook. A blinding light filled the observation window, and the alarms screamed the alien fleet had arrived without warning, without reason, without mercy. Outpost 9 vanished in a single flash of fire and twisted metal. Its destruction echoed across the comms channels as static replaced Keller's final breath on Earth. The signal reached United Defense Command. In less than a minute, the war room erupted into chaos. Generals slammed fists on the table. Orders shouted over each other. No one could believe it. The alien armada had struck first across the colonies. Panic spread Mars, Europa, and the lunar bases scrambled to raise shields. Families fled to shelters. Freight pilots abandoned cargo ships in orbit. Fear spread faster than any transmission could carry. Humanity was not ready. Not yet. But humanity had always been underestimated. First wave of alien ships moved fast. Sleek black vessels, shaped like blades of night, cut through the void. They fired beams of burning light, shattering satellites, tearing apart orbital stations, and vaporizing defense drones. The skies above Mars turned red as firestorms rained down. Colonists screamed as the ground shook. Buildings collapsed under falling debris. The alien fleet pressed forward. Relentless, cold, mechanical human ships scrambled to respond. Old frigates, corvettes, and gunships rushed to defend the colonies. Their weapons were outdated, their armor thin against alien fire. Yet they fought because they had no choice. Small squadrons darted into the void, firing missiles into the massive alien cruisers. Explosions flared like sparks against an unstoppable storm. Commander Hale watched from the bridge of the UNS Vanguard, the pride of the human fleet. His jaw was set, his eyes hard as the enemy closed in. Hale had spent his life preparing for war, but not like this. Humanity had dreamed of first contact, imagined diplomacy and alliances. But what he saw now was nothing but destruction. No warning, no negotiation, only fire. Hale's voice cut through the bridge, steady and sharp. "Target the lead vessel, fire everything we have." The Vanguard shuddered as its cannons roared. Beams of energy and heavy missiles streaked across the darkness, slamming into the alien ship. For a moment, hope flickered across the crew's faces as explosions blossomed across the alien hull. But the hope died just as fast as the alien ship stabilized, shields glowing bright. Its return fire was merciless. A single beam tore through one of the Vanguard's escorts, splitting it in half. The screams of its crew echoed through the comms. Before silence claimed them still, the humans fought. Desperation gave them strength. The colonies watched as their defenders threw themselves into impossible battles, sacrificing ships and lives to slow the alien advance. Yet for every alien ship destroyed, 3 more appeared. Their fleet was endless and cold, like the dark between the stars. And then the impossible happened near the orbit of the moon. The Earth Defense Network activated a weapon long kept secret from the public, something humanity had sworn never to use: a hidden fleet of warships. Decloaked engines burning bright, their hulls darker than night, their weapons far beyond anything known. The silence broke with thunder as the hidden fleet opened fire. Alien ships were caught off guard, their sleek formations shattered as human plasma cannons and railguns ripped into their lines. Dozens of alien cruisers fell in seconds, their hulls torn apart.
Humanity's hidden strength
Revealed at last. Civilians across the system watched in shock and awe. The message spread like wildfire. Humanity was not defenseless. Humanity would not kneel. They could fight back. Board the alien flagship. Confusion rippled through their ranks. They had believed humanity to be weak, soft, unprepared. Yet now, their vanguard was falling in moments cut apart by weapons they had never faced before. The aliens had struck first, but they had underestimated their prey. Back on Earth, Commander Hale stared at the tactical screen, his heart racing as alien ships broke apart one by one. The tide was turning for the first time since the attack began. Humanity had hope. Hale clenched his fist and spoke through the comms to every surviving ship across the system. This is not the end. This is the beginning. They thought we were weak. They thought we would fall. But today humanity stands, and humanity fights. The cheers echoed through the comms channels. Soldiers, civilians, and commanders alike felt the fire of survival burn within them. The fear that had gripped their hearts now hardened into resolve. Humanity had been struck, but humanity would answer with fury yet. Deep in the shadows of the alien fleet, a transmission pulsed. A signal the humans could not decode, a message meant for the rest of the Armada. The truth was chilling. The ships humanity had just destroyed were only the first wave. The real invasion was still coming, but for now, in the burning skies of Mars, in the shadow of the moon, in the hearts of every human scattered across the stars, there was only one thought. Humanity had faced the first strike, and they had not fallen. They had risen. They had answered fire with fire and proved a truth the aliens would never forget. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity was strong. Humanity would. Never bound in that silence that followed the first great battle of the war, the stars themselves seemed to watch and wait for what would come. Next, the wreckage of the first alien wave still burned in orbit over Mars, and the moon ships drifted, silently shattered into pieces that sparkled like dying stars across the dark void. Human crews gathered their dead and tried to breathe after the impossible battle. Yet none of them truly believed it was over. For every destroyed cruiser and fallen frigate, there was a whisper in the back of every mind. This was only the beginning. Commander Hale stood on the bridge of the UN's vanguard, staring at the tactical screens. The alien fleet that had struck first had been erased in moments, but Hale knew better than to celebrate. The silence was not victory, it was warning. Humanity had drawn blood, and in doing so had called down something far worse across Earth, and the colony's news feeds repeated the same headline. The alien armada struck first. But humanity erased them instantly. Civilians cheered, soldiers raised fists in defiance. But in quiet corners of command centers and hidden bunkers, leaders asked the question no one wanted to face. What comes next on Mars? Families emerged from shelters. The red sky still burned with fire from the orbital bombardment. Children clutched their parents' hands, staring at broken towers and shattered domes. People wept for the dead, but whispered of survival. The aliens had tried to crush them and failed. That belief spread like a flame across the colony's hope, born from blood and smoke. Yet, out in the far reaches of the solar system, scouts picked up new signals, far denser, far stronger.
Thousands of returns on their screens flickered like swarms
Of insects against the black scanners, screamed warnings at operators who could hardly breathe. The first wave had been nothing more than a test back. Aboard the Vanguard, Hale leaned against the command rail. His crew waited for his orders. Some whispered that they had already won, that the aliens would retreat after their losses. Others kept silent, knowing Hale's eyes told another story. He turned slowly to his officers, voice firm. "We are not finished. This was their opening strike. They will return. And when they do, they will come with everything they have. We are the shield and the sword. We cannot falter." Hidden fleet near the moon still glowed hot from battle. These ships had been secret for years, built in silence with technology no citizen had been told about. Their existence shocked the world, but their firepower had saved it. Now every camera, every news feed, every leader asked the same question. If humanity had such weapons hidden, what else was waiting in the shadows? And board one of the hidden ships, the Obsidian captain, Rhea sat with her crew, analyzing the wreckage from the alien vessels. The ships were unlike anything human eyes had seen. Their hulls, smooth, black, and alive with strange pulsing veins. When human engineers tried to scan them, the systems glitched. When they touched the metal, it shifted slightly, as if breathing. The dead ships were not dead at all. Something inside them still stirred. Reyes ordered her crew to back away. "Seal the wreckage, lock it down. We do not know what sleeps inside," but not all listened. Salvage teams, desperate for technology, entered the alien husks. They searched for weapons, power cores, anything that could be used in the coming war. What they found was worse than fire. They Found body small pale creatures curled inside the walls, eyes closed like they were dreaming, hands long and thin, fingers sharp and twitching. The humans thought they were corpses until one opened its eyes. Screams echoed across the combs before silence returned. The salvage teams were gone. The wreckage began to pulse like a heartbeat. The alien ships were not merely machines, they were alive back on Earth. Governments demanded answers. Why were citizens not warned? Why did leaders hide fleets in the shadows? What else was being kept secret? Arguments exploded in the halls of power, but Hale ignored them. His focus was on the stars because his instincts screamed the aliens had not been beaten. They had been provoked. As the second day of silence stretched across the solar system, the trap was revealed. Long-range sensors lit up with dozens, hundreds, thousands of signals. Alien reinforcements spilling from the darkness at speeds faster than human. Drives could track the sky filled with shapes black and sharp cutting across space in waves. The real invasion had begun across. The colony's alarms blared again. Families returned to shelters. Ships scrambled into orbit. Pilots strapped into cockpits. With shaking hands, humanity's hope was tested in an instant. And for many, fear returned stronger than ever. They had celebrated too early. The Vanguard Hale stood tall, his voice broadcast across the fleet. All ships, this is Commander Hale. Have seen what they bring, you have seen what they want. They will not stop until humanity is ash. They struck first, and they believe us weak. But today we erase that lie. Today we fight not for survival alone, but for dominance. We are humanity. We endure, we rise, we answer fire with fire. The fleet roared back with their voices, the combs filled with chants. Humanity fights, humanity stands, humanity survives. The first clash came near Mars. Alien formations surged forward, firing beams that cut through the void like rivers of white fire. Human ships swarmed around them, missiles and plasma tearing into their shields. Explosions bloomed across the battlefield, debris spinning wildly past cockpits. Pilots screamed warnings and names of fallen. Friend ships vanished in fire and static, yet the line held. The hidden fleet moved like a blade in the dark. Their weapons pierced alien holes in bursts that shattered entire squadrons. The aliens answered with overwhelming numbers. Crashing forward, without fear, their living ships twisted through human fire, reforming broken holes, regenerating wounds. No matter how many were destroyed, more kept coming on Earth. Billions watched the battle unfold on endless screens. Some wept, some prayed, some shouted in defiance. Children asked if they were safe. Parents held them close with no answer to give. Humanity was one voice now, one heart beating against the storming. In the midst of the chaos, Hale's tactical officer cried out, "Sir, the alien flagship? It is moving forward." The screen shifted, revealing a monstrous vessel larger than any before. Its hull rippled like liquid black metal. Its weapons burned with light never seen before. It moved with purpose, cutting straight through the battle heading. For Earth, Hale's jaw tightened. His mind raced. If the flagship reached Earth, the planet would burn. Humanity's cradle would fall. He could not allow it. His voice broke across the fleet. All ships concentrate fire on the flagship. Every gun, every missile, every strike, bring it down. Now the fleet turned as one. Streams of fire erupted from hundreds of human ships, slamming into the alien giant. The flagship staggered but did not fall. Its shields pulsed like a heartbeat, absorbing more than any ship should withstand it. Kept moving forward, relentless, unstoppable. The Obsidian Captain Reyes stared at her screens, eyes wide with realization. It is not just a ship. It is a hive before her crew could question the alien flagship. Opened a section of its hull split apart, and from within poured swarms, thousands of smaller vessels alive and screaming into the void like insects unleashed. Humanity's fleet faltered, caught between fire from the flagship and the endless swarm soldiers. Shouted curses, pilots screamed in terror. Hale's fists clenched. Humanity had awakened something beyond imagination. Even in the face of overwhelming force, humanity did not break. The Vanguard surged forward, leading the fleet straight into the swarm. Hale's voice thundered across comes, "Hold the line, hold the line. Humanity will not kneel. Humanity will not break." At a battle raged, fire against fire, blood against steel, hope against annihilation. The alien swarm struck first. Humanity struck back harder. The flagship burned under concentrated fire, though it did not fall. The swarms screamed, though it did not end. As the stars filled with fire, one truth became clear. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival alone. They were fighting for the future of every child, every colony, every dream ever born beneath the skies of Earth. The war had only begun, and humanity had already shown it would not surrender. The aliens had made their mistake. They had struck first, but humanity had answered with fury, and now the universe itself would learn the cost of underestimating mankind. Wreckage drifted across the black ocean of space, silent and endless broken alien ships, glowing faintly as fires burned out in the cold void. Human fleets moved cautiously through the debris fields, gathering survivors and salvaging what little could be saved. Now, the battle had been brutal and costly, but for the first time in history, humanity had stood against an armada from beyond the stars and survived. Yet even as damaged ships limped back to dock, even as families on Earth and Mars whispered of victory, there was a shadow growing. A feeling that what had been seen so far was only the beginning. Commander Hale stood on the bridge of the UN's Vanguard. Eyes fixed on the tactical displays, the battle had left scars across the fleet, entire squadrons gone, colonies burned, stations shattered. His crew spoke in quiet tones, exhausted but determined. For every cheer that rose from Earth, there was another. The message of grief from the colony's humanity had defended its home, but the cost had been terrible. Hale's thoughts were heavy, yet something else gnawed at him. The way the aliens fought the strange pulsing holes, the swarm unleashed from the flagship, none of it fit the image of a simple enemy he felt in his bones. There was a deeper truth waiting in the shadows across. The fleet orders were given salvage crews in armored suits launched from human ships, drifting into alien wrecks to recover technology. For years, humanity had dreamed of a leap forward, a chance to master drives, weapons, and shields far beyond their own. Now the wreckage floated before them, alien ships torn open by fire. Humanity was desperate to learn and desperate to prepare, because every whisper said the same thing: the aliens will return. One of the salvage teams was led by Lieutenant Vega. She and her crew pushed inside the twisted hull of an alien cruiser. Lights flickered against walls that seemed to move like muscle. Metal was not dead, it quivered under their boots. Vega tightened her grip on her weapon. Uneasy, stay close. She ordered, keep your scanners on, full sweep. Something about this ship feels alive. Her team advanced deeper. The corridors were too smooth. Almost grown rather than built, strange pods lined the walls, glowing faintly with a sick green light as they passed. One pod. Vega stopped. Her scanner beeped, warning. Her hand shook as she aimed her light. The pod was cracked open, and inside lay a small, pale figure. Its chest rose once, then stilled. Its eyes snapped open. Black as Voitha comes exploded with screams.
Ow.
Vega fired her rifle, the shots ripping through the creature as it lunged with clawed hands. It fell, but more pods began to pulse. The walls around them trembled as if the ship itself was waking up. Vega shouted, retreat, get out now. All units pull back. Half the team never made it out. The survivors blasted themselves free of the hole, their breathing ragged, their eyes wide with horror. The alien ships were not empty graves. They were alive, each vessel, a hive each hull. A body. The Armada had not just been machines. It had been something worse, something fused of flesh and metal. When the report reached Commander Hale, the bridge fell silent. His officers stared in disbelief. The implications were chilling. They are not just ships, Hale whispered. They are organisms, weapons grown, not built. The fleet we fought was alive. Scientists across Earth confirmed the findings. The alien ships carried cores that acted like hearts, pumping energy through veins of metal. Their weapons were extensions of their bodies. Their crews were fused into the ships themselves. Bone merged with steel, nerve merged with circuit. It was war on a level. Humanity had never imagined the aliens were not merely invaders. They were a species that turned war into biology. Revelation spread through the colony's families, who had been celebrating now shivered with dread. The news feeds called it the living fleet. Soldiers whispered it like a curse. If each destroyed ship could birth more from its remains. If the wreckage was not truly dead, then humanity had not destroyed an armada at all. They had only wounded a beast that could heal, but the Darkest truth was yet to come. Deep within the wreckage of the flagship salvage drones uncovered a chamber untouched by the battle. Inside was a vast, crystalline device, still pulsing with energy. The device projected signals across the void far beyond. Human scanners, a scientist named Dr. Lin, decoded fragments, and her blood ran cold. She rushed to Hale with her findings. "Commander, these were not their warships, these were scouts. The real Armada is still coming." The words struck the fleet like a hammer. The battle that had cost so many lives had not been against the full strength of the enemy. It had been against a vanguard, a probing attack meant to test humanity's defenses, and humanity had answered. With fire, humanity had won, but by winning they had revealed their weapons, their strategies, their secrets. Now the real war would come. Hale stood before his officer's voice grim. "Prepare every colony, prepare every fleet. What we fought was nothing but the shadow of what waits beyond the stars." Across the system, humanity braced. Earth's skies filled with the roar of factories working day and night. Shipyards glowed as new warships rose from steel and fire soldiers trained in endless drills. Civilians were moved into shelters deep under the surface. Politicians argued, but for once, they all agreed survival came before everything else. Humanity had no choice but to stand together, yet while preparations grew, a new threat slithered unseen. Shadows of betrayal moved through the ranks. Intelligence officers intercepted transmissions from deep within Earth's own networks. Someone had been feeding data to the aliens long before the first strike. Human traitors, or perhaps infiltrators. Working to weaken defenses, Halley studied the reports. His stomach-tight tension grew on every ship's suspicion, spreading like poison. If there were traitors, how deep did the betrayal? Gunmar's riots broke out. Colonists demanded answers, demanding why. Earth had hidden secret fleets while the colonies burned leaders, tried to calm them, but anger flared. Civil war threatened. Even as the alien storm gathered on the horizon, humanity's greatest enemy might not be the aliens. It might be themselves. Then the sensors screamed again. Long-range arrays lit up with countless signals moving at impossible speed. The darkness at the edge of the system shifted. Something vast was coming, and its shadow swallowed the stars. Entire sectors lit up red with warnings. Humanity had no time left. The storm was already here. Hale ordered the fleet into position. Every ship, every pilot, every soldier would be needed. The air on the Vanguard felt heavy with silence as crew members strapped into their stations. Weapons warmed, shields hummed, generators screamed with power. Hale looked at the stars, knowing that what came next would decide everything. "This is not the end," he whispered. "This is only the start." And as the alien signals grew stronger, filling the scanners with endless returns, humanity realized the truth. The first strike had not been the war. The second wave was coming, and it would be unlike anything the human race had ever seen. Silence broke with the sound of alarms. The real Armada had arrived. The fleet floated in uneasy silence after the warnings came through from the wreckage. The news that the first alien Armada had only been a scouting force spread like fire across Earth and the colonies. People who had celebrated victory only hours before now sat in fear. Of families in shelters whispered to each other. Soldiers checked their weapons in silence. Politicians shouted in council chambers with fear in their eyes. No one wanted to admit it, but the truth was clear. The war had only just begun, and the enemy was far greater than anyone had dared to imagine. Commander Hale walked the command deck of the Vanguard, his boots heavy against the steel floor. His eyes were hard, but his thoughts darker than his face showed. He had known something was wrong from the start. No enemy sends its true strength first. The aliens had been testing them, learning them, and now the real storm would fall. His crew looked at him for strength, and he gave it, but inside he felt the weight of every life depending on him. Across Earth and Mars, preparations moved at full speed. Factories burned through nights. Shipyards glowed as new battleships rose. Workers labored until their hands bled. Soldiers trained in endless drills. Civilians dug deep shelters in mountains and under oceans. Humanity had no choice but to prepare, but fear always creates cracks, and into those cracks slipped shadows. The first sign came as a transmission intercepted by intelligence officers. A signal had been sent from Earth just before the first alien strike, a message carrying coordinates of outposts and fleet positions. A message not sent by aliens but by humans, A traitor, someone among them, had betrayed humanity. The discovery struck like lightning. Across command centers, meetings turned into shouting matches. Generals accused politicians. Politicians accused each other. Soldiers whispered about spies hidden in the ranks. The enemy was not only in the stars, it was inside their own walls. Hale listened to the reports, his fists clenched. The betrayal was not just a leak. It had been going on for years. The aliens had known where to strike first because someone had told them. Captain Reyes aboard the UN's Obsidian confirmed the worst, her intelligence. Officers traced fragments of coded transmissions through military networks. They had been routed carefully, buried under layers of false signatures. But the truth was there. Somewhere in the highest levels of Earth's government, someone had been working for the aliens. She played the recordings for her senior officers. The codes were human. The traitor is not a spy planted recently. They have been with us for decades. News hit like a blade to the heart. Humanity was already fractured by fear. Colonies accused Earth of hiding weapons. Earth accused colonies of weakness. Now, with whispers of betrayal, people began to turn on each other. Mars erupted in riots. Crowds stormed government offices, shouting for answers. Soldiers fired into the air to control them, but the anger did not fade on Europa. Workers refused to load supply ships, shouting they would not die for Earth. Earth itself boiled with suspicion. Leaders turned on one another, shouting across broadcasts. No one trusted anyone. The aliens had struck with fire, but now they struck with silence. The betrayal hollowed humanity from within. Hale stood before his officers in the Vanguard war room. His voice was sharp and steady, even as the storm of suspicion raged outside. Whoever betrayed us did not do it alone. They had helped networks' resources. This is no single traitor. This is a chain, and we will break it, but we cannot let this break us. He looked each officer in the eyes. Humanity stands only if we stand together. That is our strength. That is what they fear. Even as Hall tried to hold his fleet together, the aliens moved. Sensors picked up faint ghost signals around the edges of the system. Not large fleets, not yet, but small ships, fast and sharp, moving like knives in the dark. They were scouts, probing, hunting, and each time they vanished before humans could intercept.
Almost as if they already knew where human patrols would be.
Hale felt the anger burn deep inside. The traitor was still feeding them information. Darlene studied the captured alien technology day and night. Her eyes were tired, her hands shaking, but her mind sharp. She discovered that the alien hive ships could communicate across impossible distances. Their signals were not simple transmissions, but pulses through something deeper, like the fabric of space itself. She came to Hale with her findings. They do not need time to send orders. They do not need relays. They think as one. When we kill one ship, the rest know instantly what happened. They are never blind. Her words chilled Hale's crew. Humanity fought as individuals, with commanders and chains of command, but the aliens were one mind, one endless voice. No wonder they seemed unstoppable. Each ship was only a finger of the same hand, and if humanity was divided by betrayal, then they were fighting against an enemy stronger than ever. On Mars, Vega and her salvage team were called before colonial leaders to give testimony about what they had seen inside the wreckage. She told them about the pods, the creatures waking inside the living ships, her voice low and steady. The room was filled with silence when she finished. One leader finally spoke. They are not just machines. They are grown weapons. They do not build fleets, they grow them, and they will grow more. Her words spread across Mars, stirring more fear. Some whispered that humanity could never stand against something alive and endless. Some whispered that the only hope was surrender. Hale heard those whispers. To carry it across secure channels, he smashed his fist against the table when the reports came through. They will offer us no peace, he growled. They want our extinction. Do not mistake survival for surrender. But as he spoke those words, a new broadcast cut across the system. A voice masked and distorted. It came from inside Earth's own secure channels. The message played on every fleet comes every colony, every outpost. The voice spoke slowly. Cold humanity cannot win.
Ow.
The Armada is endless. Earth cannot save you. The colonies will fall. Save yourselves. The broadcast ended, but the damage had been done. Fear spread like a poison. A voice from within had declared humanity doomed. Was it the traitor? Was it many traitors? Hale's officers demanded answers, but none came, only silence and suspicion. stood on the bridge of the obsidian staring at the stars. She spoke to her crew quietly. The aliens are not just attacking with ships. They are attacking with doubt. They want us to tear ourselves apart before they even arrive. If we let fear guide us, we will destroy ourselves faster than they can. But the truth remained. A traitor walked among them. And as the fleet prepared for the coming storm, no one knew who to trust. Hale stood alone in his quarters, staring at the endless black outside the window. The enemy was already inside their walls, and the real Armada had not even arrived yet. The night across Earth and the colonies was filled with silence, broken only by alarms and whispers. Humanity braced for the storm, not knowing if the knife that would end them would come from the stars or from their own shadows. The traitor was still out there watching, waiting, feeding the enemy everything. Humanity stood on the edge of fire and betrayal, and only time would tell if they would fall into darkness or rise again. The red planet trembled as the first shadows of the alien Armada fell. Across its skies, dust storms swirled under the fire of engines, and the people of Mars felt the weight of terror pressing down on them. Families crowded into shelters carved deep beneath the surface, while soldiers stood on the walls of domes and bunkers waiting for the attack to fall above them. Orbit burned bright as human fleets scrambled into position. Ships rose from the shipyards half-finished, barely tested, but still armed, because there was no more time. The enemy had arrived. Hale stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, his hands gripping the command rail. His eyes followed the tactical map, filling with red marks. Alien signatures multiplied by the second. They were not scouts this time. They were not testing humanity. They had come to crush Mars completely. His voice cut sharp and steady across the comms to every ship in the fleet. All units hold formation. Mars is the line. We fall here and Earth will burn. Stand firm. Humanity stands together. Humanity fights together. Comms roared with replies. Voices of captains, pilots, and soldiers repeating the words, humanity stands, humanity fights, humanity survives. The chant spread across the fleet and down into the colonies. Soldiers on the ground shouted it as they loaded weapons. Civilians whispered it in shelters. Children clung to parents as the words gave them hope. Humanity had been betrayed, had been wounded, but it had not broken. Now the test would come and fire. The alien fleet moved like a tide across the void. Black ships shaped like knives cutting through the stars. Their hulls glowed with sickly green light, pulsing like veins alive with energy. They spread in tight formations, shields overlapping weapons, ready to fire hails. Officers watched with pale faces as the scale of the Armada grew. The red marks covered the screens like blood across a map. One officer whispered, "There are too many." Hale's voice snapped back steady. "Then we kill them one by one until none remained." The first shots tore across space. Alien beams burned bright white, slicing through the void. Toward human defenses, Mars orbital platforms lit up with shields, groaning under the pressure. One shattered in seconds, exploding into a ring of fire. The shockwave rattled through. The fleet hall barked orders, "Vanguard fire, all batteries focus on the lead cruiser." His ship shuddered as its cannons roared, blue fire streaking into the black. A volley of railgun slugs slammed into the alien cruiser shields, rippled sparks flying. Then a missile barrage detonated across its surface. The alien ship staggered, its hull tearing open before it finally exploded. The crew of the Vanguard cheered. The first kill was theirs, but the cheer died quickly as 10 more cruisers surged forward. In its place, the swarm of alien fighters poured out of their carriers, darting like insects through the stars. They crashed into human squadrons, dogfights erupting in flashes of fire. Pilots screamed names of fallen comrades across comms. Missiles streaked, railguns thundered, fighters twisted and spun through the chaos. The ground Mars shook as the first bombardment began. Alien beams cut through the thin atmosphere, striking domes and defense towers. Explosions tore through the colony shields. Civilians huddled in bunkers felt the ground quake. Soldiers rushed to the walls, firing anti-orbital cannons into the sky. A great roar rose from the colonies as weapons lit the heavens. Mars was not surrendering. Mars was fighting. Lieutenant Vega led a squad of ground troops across the ruins of a collapsed dome. Her armor was scorched, her rifle hot in her hands. Behind her, civilians fled, carrying what little they could. Alien drones dropped from the skies, sharp metallic creatures crawling over rubble, firing beams of light. Vega shouted to her squad, Hold the line, protect the civilians. They fired in bursts, tearing the drones apart with steady fire. The civilians ran to shelters, their faces filled with fear and hope as soldiers bled. For them, Captain Reyes, aboard the Obsidian, guided her ship through a burning field of wreckage. Her crew fired broadside after broadside plasma blasts, tearing through alien frigates. Reyes kept her voice calm even as alarms blared. Hold steady, do not break formation, strike with precision, every shot must kill. They obeyed, and the Obsidian carved a path through the swarm, but the enemy was endless. The living ships regenerated holes, sealing wounds in their hulls. Fighters poured out faster than they could be destroyed, Reyes whispered to herself. We are bleeding them, but will it be enough back? On the Vanguard, Hale's officers shouted, report shields failing on multiple ships. Frigates lost, entire squadrons gone, Mars defense grid collapsing. Hale's jaw tightened. He knew they could not last forever. They needed something more. His mind raced, remembering the forbidden weapon built in silence hidden deep beneath the Martian surface, a weapon too dangerous to reveal until no choice remained. He opened a private channel to Mars Command. Activate the Aegis. There was silence on the other end. Then a reluctant voice. Are you certain, Commander? Once we unleash it, there is no turning back. Hale's voice was cold. Do it now, or Mars is ash beneath. The surface of Mars' massive chambers came alive. Generators screamed with power. Engineers fled as the ground rumbled. The Aegis was not a cannon or missile. It was a shield, a massive energy barrier powered by the heart of Mars itself, built from stolen alien tech fused with human design. It had never been tested, but now the red planet shook as the shield burst outward. A wave of blue light expanded from the surface, wrapping Mars in a glowing sphere. Alien beams struck the shield and shattered. Harmlessly across its surface, the colonies erupted in cheers. Humanity had raised a wall against the storming. Orbit alien ships reeled back, their beams breaking against the glowing sphere. Human ships regrouped behind the shield, launching counterstrikes. Railguns, plasma cannons, and missiles hammered into alien formations, tearing ships apart. Hale's voice thundered across the comms, pushed them back. Mars stands. The battle raged on for hours. Skies filled with fire debris rained across the planet alien. Swarms battered the shield again and again. Each impact shook the ground like an earthquake generator's strained, threatening collapse. Engineers screamed as systems overheated, but Mars held. The colonies fought with teeth, and fire soldiers bled and died, but they never broke. Civilians sang in shelters, whispering the chant, humanity stands, humanity fights, humanity survives. Then the alien flagship moved forward, larger than any seen before, its hull rippling alive with sick green light. Its weapons pulsed with power greater than the rest combined. It fired one massive beam into the shield. The ground shook, buildings toppled, generators screamed. Sparks erupted across control rooms. The shield flickered, threatening to fall. Hale watched the readings, his heart pounding. If the shield failed, Mars was lost. He shouted across the comms, all ships, target the flagship. Pour everything into it. Human fleets surged. Railguns spat missiles, streaked plasma, lit the void. The flagship staggered under the fire. Holes burning across its hull, but it did not stop it. Fired again. The shields shattered like glass fragments of blue light falling across the sky. The colonies screamed as the wall protecting them vanished. The flagship prepared to fire once more. To finish, Mars. Hale clenched his fists, his voice a roar across every channel. We do not break. Mars will not fall. Humanity fights. He ordered the Vanguard into direct assault. The massive ship surged forward, leading the fleet straight into the jaws of the flagship. Cannons thundered, missiles tore through the black. The Vanguard rammed through alien fighters, slamming into the flagship's swarm. Reyes brought the Obsidian alongside, firing everything in her arsenal. Vega on the ground rallied, her soldiers firing at drones that rained down from the sky. Civilians joined them, picking up rifles, standing shoulder to shoulder. Humanity became a wall of fire and defiance. The flagship burned under the storm. Its hull cracked, its weapons faltered. Finally, under the weight of every ship, every soldier, every desperate strike, it exploded. The sky lit with fire brighter than any sunrise. Mars shook under the roar, and then silence followed, a silence filled with breathless disbelief. Humanity had done it, the flagship was Gonchers, erupted across the colonies across. Earth itself, humanity had faced the greatest storm yet, and still stood bloodied, broken, but unbowed. Mars still lived. But as the smoke cleared, as wreckage drifted across the void, sensors picked up more signals at the edge of the system, stronger, larger, countless. The enemy was not finished. The battle for Mars was only the beginning. The true war was still to come. The fires of Mars still burned long after the alien flagship exploded. Wreckage drifted in orbit, red light flickering across broken holes. Soldiers on the ground walked through the ruins, pulling survivors from collapsed domes and shattered shelters. The people of Mars had fought with everything. They had not fallen. But even as cheers echoed through bunkers and fleets counted their dead, the truth weighed heavy on every heart. Aliens would not stop the battle for Mars, had only delayed the storm that was still coming. Commander Hale stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring at the endless debris field. His crew worked quietly around him. Their faces were tired, but their eyes carried fire. They had one for now, but Hale knew the cost was only beginning. He spoke softly to his officers. "We bled them here, but they will return stronger. The signals at the edge of the system keep growing. What we fought was only a fraction of their strength, Captain." Reyes aboard the Obsidian sent reports of heavy losses. Nearly half of the human fleet destroyed, thousands dead, millions on Mars, homeless or wounded. And yet her voice over the comms was steady. "Commander, we proved they can be hurt. That is enough to keep our people fighting." Hale nodded, but inside he wondered how long hope could hold when the next storm arrived on the ground. "Lieutenant?" Vega and her soldiers patrolled through ruins, pulling drones from wreckage and hunting survivors of alien landing parties. The civilians looked at her with something more than gratitude. They looked at her like she was the shield that stood between them and extinction. Vega felt the weight of those eyes. She whispered to herself, "We cannot fail them." In the silence after battle, Dr. Lin worked with a team of scientists, studying fragments of the alien flagship. The pieces pulsed faintly with green light even in death. Every shard of hull felt alive, her instruments sparking with interference. She wrote her report in shaking hands. "The aliens do not build ships, they grow them, and from what we have seen, they can grow them again and again. Humanity cannot match them with numbers. If we are to survive, we need something else." Her words reached Hale in the dead of night. He read the report in silence, then sent orders. "Summon Lin to the Vanguard immediately." When Lin arrived, she laid out the truth before the commanders. Round the table, officers stared at the glowing samples. Fragments of alien hull contained in reinforced chambers. "They are alive," she said there. "Ships grow faster than we can build. They heal, they adapt, and every time we fight them, they learn more. If we keep fighting as we are, they will drown us in their numbers." An officer slammed his fist on the table. "And what do you suggest we surrender?" Lin shook her head. "No. There is another path. In our research, we found something buried inside their cores. Something like a weakness." She hesitated, then added a signal. "If we could amplify it, we might turn their own biology against them." The room fell. Silent Hale's eyes narrowed. "A weapon?" Lin nodded. "Yes, but it is dangerous. We would have to use technology we do not fully understand. We could destroy them, but we could also destroy ourselves." The officers argued. Some shouted for caution, others demanded immediate use. Haley listened, then raised his hand, ending the noise. His voice was heavy. "We do not have the luxury of safety. If this is the only way to survive, we must take it." He looked at Lin. "Make it ready." Lin worked day and night with her team building the weapon deep under Mars base. They called it the Pulse, a massive device designed to release a wave of energy tuned to the frequency of alien biology. It would not just damage ships, it could tear their living cores apart from the inside, but the power required was beyond anything humanity had ever used. They would have to draw energy from Mars itself. If it failed, the planet could be crippled forever. News of the project spread through whispers. Some soldiers called it salvation, others called it madness. Civilians prayed in shelters, fearing what the Pulse might do, but time was short. Long-range sensors screamed with warnings. The alien reinforcements were closer every hour. Thousands of signatures at the edge of the system moving fast. The second great wave was coming. When the alarm finally sounded, Mars was still covered in scars from the first battle. Families had not even buried their dead when the skies darkened again. Alien ships poured into orbit larger. More numerous than before, shields pulsed with green fire drones swarmed ahead like rivers of black metal. The ground shook under bombardment. The second wave had begun. Hale stood tall on the vanguard, broadcasting across every ship and colony. They think we will break, but humanity does not break. We fight today for Mars, for Earth, for all of us. Stand firm, fight together, survive together. His words steadied hearts across the system. Pilots strapped in tighter, soldiers raised weapons, civilians clung to hope. The fleets clashed again, beams and missiles streaking across the void. Alien swarms poured through human lines. Shields shattered, ships exploded. Dogfights erupted in clouds of fire. Vega led her soldiers on the ground, holding streets. Against endless drones, Reyes guided the Obsidian through a burning. Sky cannons firing in all directions, Hale commanded the fleet, pushing them into the storm, but this time the enemy pressed harder. Every minute more human ships fell, every colony. Shields shook. The aliens were not probing now. They were here to finish the job. Hale knew they could not win by strength alone. He opened a secure channel to Lynn. Is the pulse ready? Lynn's voice trembled. It is ready, Commander, but if we fire at Mars, may not survive. Hale's answer was cold. Mars will not survive without it. Do it deep underground. The pulse began to charge. Generators screamed. Lights flickered. Ground cracked as energy built inside the chamber. Engineers fled as systems overloaded. The device glowed brighter than the sun, its wave growing stronger. The aliens seemed to sense it. They turned their fire toward the surface, beams slamming into Mars, shaking the planet's shields. Shattered domes collapsed. Vega screamed orders to hold the line even as the ground split under her feet. Reyes moved the Obsidian above the site, pouring fire into alien ships. 2 by seconds, Hale drove the vanguard directly into the swarm to hold them back. Every human soldier, every ship fought to protect. The Pulseland stood in the control room, her hands shaking over the final switch. Sweat poured down her face. As alarms screamed, she whispered, "Forgive me then," slammed her hand down. The pulse erupted. A wave of energy burst from the surface of Mars. Expanding in all directions, alien ships froze mid-attack.
Owls.
Shields flickered. Holes, cracked drones dropped from the sky, screeching. The swarm twisted as if in pain. Beams of green light snapped out their bodies, tearing themselves apart one by one. The alien ships collapsed, screaming into fire. The wave rolled across the void until nothing alien remained, only drifting wreckage and silence. And the ground soldiers watched in awe as drones fell lifeless from the skies. Civilians emerged from bunkers. Staring at the heavens lit with falling fire, humanity had unleashed something terrible, but something that had saved them. Cheers rose across the colonies. Across Earth, humanity had survived again, but beneath the surface of Mars, the pulse chamber was destroyed. Cracks spread through power grids. Cities lost energy. Generators failed. Mars was scarred forever. Hale stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching the wreckage drift. He whispered to himself, "We won, but at what cost?" Lynn reported in, her voice low. "The pulse worked, but the aliens will adapt. They always adapt. Next time, it may not be enough." Hale closed his eyes. He knew she was right. Humanity had found a weapon powerful enough to shatter an armada, but also dangerous enough to doom them all. And the war was far from over. The aliens had countless fleets, still waiting in the dark. And now they knew humanity was more dangerous than they ever imagined. Stars burned with silence as the wreckage drifted, but every soldier, every child, every leader felt it in their bones. This was not the end. This was only the turning point. Humanity had shown it could survive. Humanity had shown it could kill the Armada, but the question that haunted them all was simple. How long before? The storm returned. The wreckage of the alien fleet still drifted across the skies of skies. Mars, months after the pulse had been fired, broken ships floated in silence. Their glowing veins long extinguished, but the memory of their power still haunted every human who had survived. Soldiers and civilians alike stared up at the heavens with both pride and fear. Pride because humanity had struck down the Armada. Fear because they all knew the enemy would return stronger than ever. On the Vanguard, Commander Hale walked the length of his bridge slowly. His officers moved around him, their voices hushed as if speaking to. Loudly might wake the ghosts of the battle. Hale's eyes remained fixed on the tactical screens. They showed empty space, but he knew that emptiness would not last. The enemy would come back, he whispered almost to himself. They always come back in the underground labs of Mars. Dr. Lin and her team studied the remains of the pulse. The device that had saved humanity once was gone. Its core shattered, its chambers melted to slag, but in the fragments of its power, Lin saw something terrifying. The pulse had not only destroyed alien ships, it had left a mark on Mars itself. Strange. Energy lines now ran beneath the surface, where the wave had burned through the crust. Entire regions of rock glowed faintly at night. Engineers feared the ground might never recover. Farmers reported crops mutating. Scientists warned of unpredictable storms. Humanity had saved Mars, but at the same time it had cursed it. Lieutenant Vega led her squad through one of the ruined colonies, searching for survivors trapped in collapsed bunkers. The air was thin, and dust blew through the broken domes. She moved carefully, her rifle always ready, because alien drones still twitched in the rubble, half alive. Even months after the pulse, Vega crushed one under her boot. Sparks hissed from its broken core. She muttered, "They don't die easy, do they?" Her soldiers laughed bitterly, but their eyes carried the same worry. If the smallest pieces of the swarm could survive, what else might be waiting? Captain Reyes on the Obsidian spent her days patrolling the outer system. The ship was scarred from the battle, entire sections patched together with quick repairs, but her crew refused to rest. They scanned the edge of space day and night, searching for the first sign of the next wave. The silence itself became heavy. Each day with no enemy felt less like peace and more like the pause between storms. Then the signals came again. Small at first, flickers on the edge of detection. Lin saw them first. In her instruments, a pattern hidden deep in the noise of space. She rushed to Hale, her voice urgent. "They are sending scouts." Hale frowned. "Scouts?" Lin nodded. "Yes, but not ships. Not this time. It is something smaller, something faster, I think they are. Watching us, studying us, preparing for their return." Her words proved true. Within days, small objects began falling into the Martian atmosphere. They crashed in deserts and mountains like meteors bursting open to reveal strange pods. Drones poured out, not like the ones before, but new designs, sharper, faster. They did not attack openly. Instead, they spread across the planet, hiding, burrowing into the ground, harvesting data. Soldiers hunted them, but they moved too quickly, civilians whispered. That Mars itself was being infected. Via's squad was sent to track one of the pods across the dust plains. They followed it into a canyon where the walls glowed faintly with the strange marks left by the pulse. The pod opened, and a new type of drone emerged, taller than a human, its body shifting like liquid metal. It turned its glowing eyes toward Vega and spoke in a voice that was not human, but almost it said, "We learn, we adapt. We return." Vega fired immediately, but the drone dodged, vanishing into the shadows. Her soldiers stared in shock. The swarm had never spoken before. When Hale heard Vega's report, his face turned grim. "If they can speak, they can think. If they can think, they will outmaneuver us," Lin added. "Quietly, they are evolving. Faster than we expected." The pulse changed them as much as it changed Mars. Hale tightened his fists. "Then we must change too." Lin's team began working on countermeasures, studying the alien fragments to design new weapons, but every breakthrough came with danger. The alien biology infected machines, and the lab's engineers complained their tools malfunctioned near the fragments. Energy cores glowed without reason. Systems rebooted on their own. Some whispered the aliens were alive, even in pieces. Lin silenced the rumors, but inside, she felt the same fear. The enemy was inside them now, in their technology, in their world. And Earth leaders met through secure channels, arguing over the future. Some demanded Mars be abandoned, calling it too dangerous. Others insisted that Mars must be defended no matter the cost. Hale listened to the debates, but his focus remained clear. Mars was the shield of Earth. If it fell, Earth would follow. He told his officers, "We do not abandon our shield if Mars burns. Humanity burns." As weeks passed, the scout pods multiplied. Colonies reported missing people. Soldiers disappeared during patrols. Vega herself watched as two of her squad were dragged into the ground by machines that tunneled like serpent screams. Echoed then silence. She swore through gritted teeth. They are not scouting anymore. They are preparing the ground for the next invasion. Reyes confirmed the same in orbit. The Obsidian tracked strange signals across the outer system, hundreds of small objects moving in patterns surrounding Mars like a net. They were not strong enough to attack, but they were waiting, she reported to Hale. They are not rushing this time. They are building something then. One night Mars shook violently. An explosion erupted deep underground where one of the pulse scars still glowed. Red soldiers rushed to the site only to find a massive alien structure rising from the ground, a black spire pulsing with green light climbing higher and higher. It too, the sky drones swarmed around it, defending it with deadly force. Scientists watching the feeds realized the truth. The aliens were not just invading, they were planting something. Lynn examined the readings and her voice shook. This is not just a base, it is alive. They are seeding Mars, turning it into one of their worlds. Hale stared at the images of the spire and felt cold rage. If they root here, Mars is lost, Earth will follow. We cannot allow it. The order went out. Every soldier, every ship, every weapon was thrown at the spire. Vega led her squad into the heart of the battle. Drones poured from tunnels, waves of metal and fire. Soldiers fought in the streets of broken domes, rockets and rifles hammering into the swarm. Vega shouted, "Hold the line, we cut it down or we all die," her men roared back. Humanity stands, humanity fights, humanity survives. Above the spire, the vanguard and Obsidian rained fire. Plasma cannons roared, railguns thundered, missiles streaked into the black mass. Shields of green light rippled, but still the spire grew higher, glowing brighter, pulsing with a heartbeat that shook the planet. Lynn watched in horror from the command center. It is feeding on the energy we left in Mars from the pulse we gave them. The seed, now they are making it bloom. Hale clenched his jaw. Then we tear it out, root and all. He ordered every ship to focus fire on the spire, even as alien reinforcements poured in. The skies above Mars lit with a storm. Battles raged across orbit and ground alike. The spire glowed brighter with every second, like a second sun rising from the surface. At the height of the battle, Reyes' voice cut through the comms. "Commander, we cannot hold. They are surrounding us." Hale's reply was hard. "Then we break the circle. Follow me." He drove the vanguard straight into the swarm cannons, blazing, tearing a hole in the alien formation. The Obsidian surged behind him. Other ships following. Humanity carved through the storm, desperate to reach the spire on the ground. Vega and her soldiers planted charges at the base of the spire, fighting hand-to-hand with drones as they set the timers. One by one her men fell, but the charges were armed. She shouted into comms, "Charges set, blow it now." Hale gave the order and fire consumed the base of the spire. Explosions tore through it, green light spilling out like blood. The great tower shuddered and began to collapse. Drones screamed as their mother structure crumbled. The people of Mars roared in triumph as the spire fell broken into the dust. But Lynn did not cheer. Her instruments showed something terrifying. Even in ruins, the spire still pulsed faintly alive. She whispered, "They will build it again, and next time they will build more." Hale stood silent, staring at the wreckage, his heart heavy. They had destroyed the seed, but the soil of Mars was already infected. Humanity had won another battle, but the war was only growing darker. For the first time, Hale allowed himself to speak the truth aloud. This war will not be decided on Mars. We will have to carry it to the stars. As the wreckage of the spire burned and the soldiers counted their dead, a new silence spread across the colonies. A silence filled with fear and anticipation. Everyone knew the next battle would not just be for Mars. It would be for the future of humanity itself. Ruins of the alien spire still smoldered on the surface of Mars, but already the survivors knew it had only been a shadow of the true threat. The swarm had not come to conquer, yet they had come to prepare. Humanity had torn down the seed, but in doing so had proved something to the enemy. They would not kneel, they would not surrender, and so the true storm was coming. Commander Hale stood in the war room of the vanguard, staring at the star charts spread across the screens. His officers were silent, waiting for his words. For months they had been fighting on the defensive, waiting for the enemy to strike and reacting to each blow, but Hale's voice was sharp. When he finally spoke, "We cannot wait for them anymore. Every time they come, they learn more. They adapt. We must strike first across system." The order spread. Humanity would no longer defend their ground like prey. They would carry the fire into alien space factories roared to life on Earth, and Mars' new warships, rising faster than ever, Colonies sent their last reserves of ore and fuel. Engineers worked without rest to forge weapons designed from fragments of alien wreckage. The people knew the cost, but they gave it willingly. Better to fight among the stars than to wait for the swarm to fall upon their homes. Again Darlene worked in the labs day and night, her hands trembling from exhaustion but her mind sharp. She had unlocked something in the ruins of the spire, a weakness, not in the ships themselves but in the swarm's hive connection. Its pulse, like the one that had destroyed the first Armada, could not be built again, but she had found another path, a disruption wave that might sever the hive mind, even if only for a moment, long enough to break their unity, long enough to strike at their heart. Hale listened to her plan and nodded grimly. Then that is what we aim for. We cut the head from the beast and scatter the body. He turned to Captain Reyes and Lieutenant Vega. You will lead the vanguard strike. Your ships and your soldiers will carry us into their nest. Reyes saluted, sharp and certain. Her ship, the Obsidian, had been battered in every battle, but it still flew like a blade. She told her crew, the enemy has brought us nothing but fire and death. Now we bring it to them. Humanity strikes back. Vega gathered her squad, veterans of Mars, scarred but unbroken. She told them straight, this is the last march. We fight not for one world, but for all of them, for every child hidden in the shelters, for every friend we buried. If we fall, then Earth burns with us. They roared back. Humanity stands, humanity fights, humanity survives. The fleet gathered at the edge of Mars, hundreds of ships, small and large, their hulls gleaming in the dark. Engines flared, lighting the black with human fire. Civilians watched from domes and stations, cheering as the Armada formed. It was the greatest fleet humanity had ever forged. A shield now turned into a spear. The jump into alien space was silent and cold. For hours the fleet drifted through the void, engines humming. The stars grew strange around them, lights bent in ways that no human eye had seen before. They were entering enemy territory. Hale stood on the bridge, his hand tight on the railing, his voice steady. No turning back. Now we finish this. First contact came suddenly. Alien ships appeared, not with warning, but with a ripple in the dark. Hundreds of them, claws of light cutting across the void. The swarm had been waiting. Hale barked orders, shields up, weapons hot. Do not break the line. The battle began. The void exploded with fire. Railguns thundered, plasma bolts streaked, missiles carved glowing paths through the dark. The swarm moved as one, weaving through the human formation, striking with perfect unity. But this time, humanity did not break. Hale's fleet held tight, every ship covering the next. They had learned to fight as one. Tereus drove the Obsidian straight into the thick of the swarm. Her crew fired broadside after broadside, tearing holes in the alien formations. Drones slammed against the hull but were cut down by gunners. Vega led boarding teams into alien wreckage, clearing them with rifles and blades. Her voice roared over, comes, drive them back, push forward. But the swarm was endless. For every ship destroyed, two more seemed to appear. The human line began to strain. Ships cracked under the pressure, cries of the dying filling the channels. Then Lynn's voice cut across the comms. Commander, the disruption wave is ready. Hale answered, do it from the vanguard. Lynn unleashed the wave. A pulse, invisible but sharp, tore through the void. It rippled across alien ships. Their movements stuttered. Their unity faltered for the first time. The swarm hesitated. The hive mind was wounded. Hale's voice boomed, now strike. The heart sensors had revealed a massive structure hidden deep in the void, a living fortress larger than any ship, a nest glowing with green light. The source of the swarm. Hale pointed to it. All ships follow me. We burn their nest to ash. The fleet turned, fire raining against the fortress. The swarm tried to regroup, but their unity was broken by the disruption. Ships collided, drones moved out of sync. Humanity pressed forward, every cannon, every missile hammering into the heart of the enemy. Reyes saw an opening, her voice calm but fierce. Obsidian with me. She drove her ship straight into the swarm, clearing a path with sheer firepower. The vanguard and others followed, blazing through the gap until the fortress loomed before them, towers of bone and metal pulsing with a sick green light. Lynn whispered from her console, that is it, that is their mind. Kill it, and the swarm dies. Vega and her squad boarded the fortress, through a torn breach, fighting room by room, through corridors alive. With writhing veins, drones poured at them in endless waves, but they carved through them step by step. Vega shouted. Hold the line. Every step is another nail in their coffin. Her soldiers roared, pushing forward until they reached the Korthakor, pulsed like a living heart, vast and terrible, filling the chamber with green fire. Voices echoed not from mouths, but from the walls. You cannot kill us. We are forever. Vega raised her rifle and spat back. Humanity is forever to she and her squad. Unleashed fire tearing into the core. Light erupted, shaking the fortress outside. The swarm screamed. Ships convulsed, breaking apart without reason. The disruption wave grew stronger, amplified by the damage to the core. Hail shouted. All ships fire. Everything now. The human fleet poured every weapon into the fortress. Missiles, railguns, plasma beams, a storm of fire greater than anything seen before. The fortress cracked, split, burned, exploded in a storm of green and white light. The swarm shattered. Across the void, ships went silent, drifting lifeless. The endless unity was broken. Humanity had struck the killing blow. Silence fell across the battlefield. Debris floated. Lightless drones drifted dead. Humanity stood bloodied and broken but victorious. Cheers erupted across every channel. Soldiers screamed their triumph. Civilians on Mars and Earth wept with joy. Humanity had faced extinction and erased the swarm instead. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Hale stood in silence, staring at the ruins. His face was hard, but his eyes carried relief. We are alive, we endured, but his voice grew dark. This was not their whole strength. Only one nest. There will be more. But now they know we are not. Prayeress sat in her command chair, her crew cheering around her. She allowed herself the smallest smile. The swarm had learned fear. Vega stood among the wreckage of the core, her squad battered but alive. She whispered to herself, humanity stands, humanity fights. Humanity survives. Darlin looked at the fading readings on her console. The hive was broken, but the energy still lingered. She knew the enemy would return, but she also knew humanity had proved itself more than worthy. They had shown that even against endless unity, the fire of human will could not be extinguished. The fleet turned for home, battered, scarred, but victorious. Behind them, the ruins of the fortress drifted, a monument to the day humanity took the war into the stars. Ahead of them lay an uncertain future, more battles, more sacrifices. But for now, they carried hope. For the first time in the long, dark war, hope burned brighter than fear. And so the story spread across Earth, Mars, and every colony. Humanity had faced the swarm in their own nest, and one of the words echoed in shelters and streets and ships and stations. Humanity stands, humanity fights, humanity survives.